All right, I think we're ready. All righty. So should we get the big one first?
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, it's not bad. The piece was brought into the studio after a period of acclimation. It had been in a very humid environment when we removed it, and I was very concerned about placing it into a very dry environment and what the effects on the wood might be. So for a period of time it sat in an intermediate sort of environment where it would slowly dry out and acclimate, and it's brought into the studio now where I've been doing a much more thorough evaluation and examination of the piece and have begun part of the cleaning process. Looks so bright without the glass. It's amazing. It's so much more vibrant. The piece itself had been sort of neglected and forgotten, and part of the conservation process is just removing it from that place where deterioration would have destroyed it eventually.
A couple of years ago, I was at the Clackamas River Hydro Project looking at changes to the North Fork fish ladder. And the gentleman that was touring me asked me if I'd ever been in the viewing station. And I said no. And he said, would you like to see it? And I said, sure. And we got here, and it's not a whole lot to look at, so I didn't expect much, but we went on in. I came into the fish viewing station, and it was a typical fish viewing station, panels on the side of the North Fork fish ladder so you could see the fish going by, nothing special. And then I turned around, and I saw this absolutely glorious painted mural of fish, full-size renderings, beautifully done, in full color, and I noticed it was painted by a guy by the name of Alex Schomburg. Didn't mean anything to me, but I took a picture of the signature just so that I would have it if I needed it. Alex Schomburg was one of the leading comic book and science fiction artists of the 20th century. By the time he was 18, he was a professional illustrator. His skill level was such that he became incredibly popular and ended up working for Marvel and thrilling stories and amazing stories. And by the end of his career, he's consulting with Stanley Kubrick on the concept art for 2001: A Space Odyssey. And so a lot of the really iconic images that we think of going with science fiction, the Statue of Liberty after an apocalypse covered in sand, those are Schomburg images that other people have used. And he was there at the creation of a genre, what's called the golden age of comic book art.
If you look at the fish, instead of painting, he chose a pencil to draw in the ribs of these fins, or this sinuous line that kind of gives that sort of fluid movement to each fish. So each one of these lines that defines the center side and the ribs of the fins are all done in pencil. And a pencil drawing is the principal tool in an illustrator's toolbox. It's where it all begins. It's the pencil meets the paper, and it's the strength of line and design that makes an illustrator great. Another interesting thing is that you can see in the numbers that using his illustrator's toolbox, he used a compass to make perfect circles. And in fact, in the center of every one of these round numbers is a pinprick where the compass pin was actually positioned in the center. I think it's a very, very unique piece of cultural heritage because it not only speaks a lot to the sort of native species that live in the area, but also the whole changes that were taking place as hydroelectric energy came into play, and the salmon and fish conservation movement, and what PGE was doing to conserve the fish and reach out to the community to let them know what they were doing.
I don't think anybody realized what this was. They didn't know who Alex Schomburg was, and my guess is at some point it would have just completely fallen into disrepair and been so far gone we couldn't restore it, or it would have been demolished and somebody might have thought the mural was kind of cool and hung it in their garage or something, but it never would have gotten this kind of attention.